Welcome to On the Couch with Lisa Sukdev. We continue with our electoral series, and in studio today we have the leader of the Minority Front, Shameen Rajbansi. Welcome. Thank you so much for making the time to come and join us.
Thank you very much.
You know, we were just talking off air that the party has been going for 28 years and you've spent 25 years in active politics. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, you're right about the active part, but my political career started a long time ago. Before that, I was only 12 years old, and in school I used to take part in debates. And there were these young Hofmeyr freedom speech contests, when I got into high school. And in those debates, I started, choosing topics that were very political. I started getting sensitized, to the suffering of people, to racism, and to the types of sort of racialized divisions that we had in our societies and all that. And those things got me thinking about who are the role models in terms of political leadership that I had to look to. And I wasn't finding anyone in South Africa because it was the apartheid regime. But I was starting to look at, democratic countries globally, like Indira Gandhi. Then I was looking at Golda Meir, John F. Kennedy, and people like that to see, and even Muhammad Gaddafi. I used to love reading anything that was written about him because he was a freedom fighter. And that's how I started off here.
So that's quite a global mindset.
Yes.
And I know often people, it's something common that's said that your activism or your political career started with the late Mr. Rajbansi. And a lot of people think that he was, since his passing, that nobody's been able to carry the baton like he did. How would you respond to a comment like that?
I think that initially there was a lot of skepticism, and obviously because with Mr. Rajbansi, he was this larger than life figure. He never ever thought in any conversation of his, he never thought he would pass on, so early, because he always thought that he'd, reach well over 100. He was even looking forward to his 70th birthday at that time when he fell ill suddenly. And he always thought that, he was this cat with 9 lives and he was going to survive anything and everything. So I think for him, he didn't think that, he must do any kind of succession planning in our party. And as long as he was there, he would lead the party. But obviously, he was responsible because what he did as we were reaching the 2011 local government elections, he started making some decisions about who he was going to groom for what purposes, and he felt that everyone, certain people were leaders in their own right. So he was grooming a number of people, but people who would specialize in local government politics, those at national level, those at provincial level, and he was looking at our strengths in those terms at the different spheres of government. And so he never really chose a particular leader. And I think then when he passed on so suddenly, so quickly, our party was, left in a bit of a vacuum in terms of leadership. There was nothing in our constitution about it. And therefore it was an open field. Who would be ready to take that baton had to battle for it. And then there was this leadership battle that went on actually from 2011 right up to 2013.
Wow.
And it basically took us into the next parliamentary election. So that's how severe that battle was. But at the end of it, there was a fair fight amongst the men in our party, which was very patriarchal in its structure. And of course myself, as the one woman who was prepared to fight for this work, because each one of us that was fighting believed that we could do this. And at the end of it, it boiled down to a court ruling, because our constitution was silent about the leadership of the party. And the court finally ruled that I should be the leader of the party, because I was following every process that was in the constitution, that was available with the limitations. And then the court decided that I should lead the party, but go back to national conference, and at that conference redo the constitution, and where the gaps were, I should strengthen it. And so that's what I've done, and that's how I became the leader. And not because I was chosen by anyone, but it's because I fought for the values that our party stood for, and I fought for what our constitution was.
So tell me how you're communicating with the constituents in the different wards, and how has the response been?
As I was telling you earlier, this election is different, and I really want to thank the tabloid newspapers for giving us this digital platform to connect with voters, because remember, with COVID-19, if there was anything, any kind of external shock that pushed all of us to become digitally aware and wise, and see, what are the platforms we are now going to use to get our work done. And the election is no different. So for us as political parties, I think we are using all the favorite sorts of friendly, platforms that actually get into people's homes, that people can use anywhere. So it's things like using websites, using emails. Anyone who's got an email on their phone can get a message. Anyone looking at the SMSs can get messages. Then there's lots and lots of WhatsApp groups that have been created everywhere in the community. I've never seen the community so alive with WhatsApp groups. I mean, there are WhatsApp groups for everything today. And I think that especially during this period, and the good thing is that everyone's been inviting me to be part of their WhatsApp group, and they've been wanting our opinion on things. I think
I may have a small opinion about why we have so many WhatsApp groups that have become so active.
Yeah.
And that would lead from the recent unrest and the looting that we had,
yes,
where communities had to inadvertently become vigilantes and start taking care of themselves.
Absolutely.
Share your thoughts on why we have the unrest, and what did the Minority Front do during that period?
Well, the unrest was insidious. I think there was nobody, not even us as politicians, that had an inkling or a clue that this was going to happen. Maybe some people knew, but I can tell you the rest of us didn't know. If we knew, we would have alerted the community. The thing was that we had to depend on what the Honorable President was saying, and a lot was gathered from his very first address to the nation, that this was a failed insurrection. Now, when that, and obviously he mentioned a few other things that made the community do what they had to do. Because one thing is that the people realized that the president was under attack, the constitution was under attack, and of course their liberties and freedoms was under attack. People knew that. They also knew that the government was not ready, and therefore they couldn't rely on the defense system, they couldn't rely on the police, or even right close to local government, the Metro Police. These people were dispatched too late. So in that interim, the community had to do what they had to do. A lot of that led to some things that shouldn't have happened, but a lot of the people were doing whatever they could do to survive. There was a lot of chaos, and we as a political party, we were, because remember there was these lockdown measures at that time, things were so chaotic, we were trying to ensure that we get political buy-in, first of all, to try to quell the violence through a political buy-in, because we realized that this was a political problem gone out of control, and it was actually about the ruling party and their faction fight, that all political parties had agreed that this had now gone onto the street. So we were wanting this buy-in because it was only the party that caused it that could stop it. Otherwise, the rest of the parties were being left to their own means to do whatever they could. What I did then, I went onto every platform, because the ruling party wasn't forthcoming about exactly what they knew and what was going on, and we were then having to rely on all these audio clips and videos that were going around,
the WhatsApp group,
and those
notes.
WhatsApp groups and people and the voice notes. We were relying on that. You must know that we had absolutely no sleep in that time, because you were trying to get hold of the police. I was putting on Facebook every day about the government should send out the SANDF. I was asking every area, as the government was releasing statements, every area, can you see the army vehicles? You know, you had to carry on having that momentum going. I then went on to every platform that I could, whether it was by doing my own videos, whether it was by giving newspaper interviews.
So may I surmise
radio,
to say,
TV.
Yeah, so may I surmise to say that during that period when there was all this misinformation or lack of information, one of the primary things that the Minority Front did was, number one, to try to get political buy-in, number two, to get correct information out, and number three, to monitor the situation?
Absolutely. I even went out into the community. I was called while I was on those rounds in the community. That was only about 2 days into the violence, and the Newlands community then called me, because there was this big tension between Newlands East and Newlands West, and a lot of people didn't report on that, but there was this tension, and I wanted to prevent what had happened in Phoenix and what was happening in Phoenix at that time. So I went to that community. When I went there, I met other political leaders and community leaders, and between the communities, you know, we made statements, we put out a video, so we did what we could. I even went on international TV to state our plight.
Sure. A very, very important question, because the crux of this conversation is to share insights with our viewers so that they can make an informed decision when they get to the polls on the 1st of November.
Yes.
Please tell us, share with our viewers why they need to vote for the Minority Front.
You see, the Minority Front is 28 years old. It is a tried and tested party. It has a legacy. Mr. Rajbansi started this party because he believed in minority rights as being human rights. He knew that in a transitional government and in a new regime like a democratic regime, as good as it sounds, it's going to have its battles and its challenges, and people are going to have to adapt. He also understood that minority communities will be very scared, you know, of how they were going to be embraced by the majority. And for these reasons, he formed the Minority Front. We have done extremely well in past elections. We have grown, whether it's in local government, provincial or national. Obviously, after Mr. Rajbansi's death, like any other leader, you will find that you will drop in support because people will be skeptical. But people have always done one thing, and that is that they have always come out and they have supported the Minority Front, and that's why the Minority Front is in existence. So on the 1st of November, I want to appeal to people that they must come out in their numbers. Don't be despondent. Don't be scared, because the only way you can bring change is by being brave. The only free right people have is the right to vote in our country. And this gives you a franchise to all other kinds of rights. So on that 1st of November, people must come out. They must go to their nearest voting stations between 7 a.m. and 9 p.m. It's a long day, it's a holiday, and when they go out, there will be different ballot papers. These are going to be long ballot papers. But fortunately, in this election, the Minority Front, the MF and the MF logo, the tiger logo, it appears right on the top of the ballot sheet. It's not number 1, but it's a little towards, I think it would be around number 6, if I'm not mistaken. So basically, if you read from the top, it's easy to identify it. And I really want people to come out and vote on both the ballot papers for the minority front. Do not split your vote. Be united, because there is strength in unity.
So viewers, that was the leader of the minority front, Shameen Rajbansi, and I echo her sentiment in saying that now is the time for change. Exercise your right and make your mark when you vote. Tomorrow, we speak to MEC Ravi Pillai from the ANC, and you definitely want to hear what he had to say.